we all agree? Yeah. What are the things we are checking? So we check that S1 is a root. We do shortest path to S1, and we break ties with lower IDs. And yeah, this is the one that would be produced with shortest path, spanning tree protocol. Is this unique? Could there be others? Could we think of others? No? Yeah. Huh? Are you saying it is not unique or it is unique? It is unique. Yeah, because it would be really bad if it wasn't, right? Because we are running a distributed algorithm. If different parts of the network thought different different tree, then we couldn't really do correct flooding on it. Okay, so we went through some examples of what these spanning trees look like. Let's actually now run the actual spanning tree protocol algorithm as described in lecture, and see how we end up with the tree that we said is we will have to end up in the end. So, as we said, we start with all the links being unknown. We don't know at all whether any of these links are part of our spanning tree or are not part of spanning tree. And in lecture, we went over rules of how we decide whether something is part of a spanning tree or not. Do people remember these rules and want to shout out, or do we want to just go through them here? Okay, so we will go through the rules when we get to the relevant switches. So again, we have these switches, and each of them is going to maintain its own, each one in the algorithm starts thinking they are the root, and they maintain a root, a next hop to getting to the root, and distance to the root. In the very beginning, when everyone thinks they are the root, what are the distance numbers? So it's something like this, right? Each one thinks they are root. Each one thinks they are their own next hop, and they don't have any distance to themselves. And then, how do we proceed? Yeah, and then these switches start talking. So what happens when these two talk? Who is going to change their table? Yeah, what will the numbers be? Yeah, and the other numbers? Yeah, so the triplet would be 441, right? Let's just, when I say 441, I mean the numbers in that order. Okay, how about this one? Who will change and what will the numbers be? Mm-hmm. What will it be? Yeah. And here, let's do this more quickly because you get the idea. Yeah. Wait, I hear different things. S3 is going to be 1, 2, 1. Yeah, it learns from S2. 1, 2, 2. Yeah. Okay. How about the other two, if we have new people who want to participate? So somehow they communicate with each other, and what will the final result in S4, S5 be? S4. Anyone? Uh-huh. Is it 1, 1, 1? Yeah. And S2? S5? No, 4 seems to me. That's one criticism of the protocol. Yeah, the question was, it seems we will end up disabling some links, and there will be no traffic over them. Isn't that bad? Because we are overusing some and underusing others. And I think we will actually see a poem criticizing that in the very end as well. But that Murphy and Scott wrote. Are the values clear? Okay. So we started with unknown spanning tree protocol, and now we don't really have a spanning tree yet, right? We just have, it seems we elected a route that we all agree on, and we know how to get there. And what's our next step? Oh, okay, before that. I just chose some order for messages to communicate. What would happen if I had chosen a different order? Yeah, because we said it's unique and it's a distributed system, so that's one of the properties we would want in this case. So let's do the step 2 now. We now have this information, and we are going to use this information to disable certain links and then kind of insert certain links to be part of spanning tree. And in the end, the goal is to end up with the spanning tree that we had before. And so what we do here is just we go over all the switches and see what they can disable, what they can enable. And in the end, we will see that the spanning tree that we said in the beginning we would end up with emerges. So we are constructing this tree for flooding. Let's start with S1. Which links do we know definitely would be part of the spanning tree, and which ones are definitely not, that S1 at this point can tell? Say it again. Both of them. S1 has 4 links next to it. Which both? Uh-huh. How about the other 2? Mm-hmm. That was one of the rules of the protocol, right? If we have links to hosts, we keep them. So hosts, links to A and D are in the spanning tree, and the other 2, we don't know yet. How about S2? That is disabled or enabled? Uh-huh. Yeah. And this process continues. S3? Anything else? Yeah. S4? Mm-hmm. S5? Does it do anything else? And C? And then? Yeah. Now it can disable the other 2 because they are not using it for their shortest path, right? So if we are doing it in this order, they'll be disabled. And there's also this thing that we might be worried that in the end, maybe some links will stay in the unknown state. But if you look at the protocol spec carefully, you'll see that if you chose this order of switches and added spanning tree items in this order, then the switch that has higher ID will always either enable or disable any link. So in the end, we will have no links with unknown state. Okay, so now we have a spanning tree. Yeah, note what the spanning tree is. So it is actually different from the very beginning because we had added the loops, and the loops made the spanning tree protocol to converge on this topology. And this is a valid tree. There are no loops, and so we can now flood traffic over it. If S1 did not know about A, S1 could safely flood over the spanning tree, knowing that there will be no loops. And then it will receive a response. Okay, so what happens when something fails? Mm-hmm. So we no longer have a spanning tree, right? And then we need to go back and construct it. Yeah. So we start again, S1 being root? Would the root change? Hmm? Any yeses? Yes, but once we converge, who would the root be? Yeah. So we would run the same thing again. The highlighted ones are the ones that end up changing after you run the same protocol. You can just trace it by yourself after lecture. Are those questions? Mm, I don't know how it's done in practice, but you don't gain much by keeping the previous information, because as we will see, the new tree can be drastically different from the old one, depending on what links fail. Yeah. In practice, you can do either. Was there another question? Okay. So yeah, here is that example. What happens when that second link fails? Mm-hmm. Who would the root become? S2, the one with lowest ID, right? And one thing also regarding the previous question to note here is that in this case, between S2, S3, S4, S5, we have a valid tree that technically we could just stick to that and use it as our spanning tree. And in the end, we are just going to have just an equally valid spanning tree between those switches. But the spanning tree protocol just always prefers the other one. So that's also a characteristic of the protocol itself, that in the end we'll end up changing the spanning tree to this one. Is this clear? Yeah. Order for when switches are manufactured, they have like underlined ID, and this ID is like a long sequence. And yeah, they just talk and they are honest about their IDs, and these IDs are unique by manufacturers. So they just use that for this kind of thing. It's not just actually like 1, 2, 3. Not nice numbers, but computers don't care about that, so it works out. Another question? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. At this point, if S1 is alive, it still thinks it's a root. Like it is a root within its own set of switches or something. So as long as it can't talk to the others, it can't become root for the other set of switches. But yeah, within its own world, it's root, and so that's also what makes the protocol safe. That it still works, even if there were others connected to S1. S1 would maintain a valid spanning tree for those nodes. It periodically sends out telling that it's still root, and then if it doesn't, then election starts and they start finding a new root. But it just maintains the spanning tree. That's the only thing that's special. Like someone has to tell that this is still alive, this path still work, and that's done by the root. Yeah, we talked about this. And yeah, this is also another shortcoming of, not maybe shortcoming, but maybe criticism of the algorithm. The other one was what you brought up. And there has been some research on this. Yeah, actually Murphy, who was doing the online lectures, has a paper about this, taking Axe to L2, and there's a poem more nicely criticizing what we also criticized earlier in this lecture. So networking is also fun. Okay. So today we